So, what you're going to learn today, how disease is manufactured, what is really going on in your body, and the only safe and effective solution to the problem. And then I'm going to give you case studies and testimonials because I believe we'll have more time today. So about me, I've been married to my wife Susie for 28 years now. Just celebrated this weekend with these lovely folks back here. So I am the adoptive father of 3 biological beautiful sisters that are basically the reason why I was involved with Sierra Adoption Services and was involved with the name change to Sierra Forever Families. Very proud of the fact that I was involved with that organization and that our family was chosen to be the poster family because we went through the adoption process twice to bring home 3 girls. So, see, I've been an IT entrepreneur for 35 years, and this is how I got involved with my father's medical practice. I installed his very first network. Actually, it wasn't even called a network back in those days, but I worked very closely with my father, and it was at the very time that they were bringing in this detoxification protocol into his business in a joint venture, and with that I was required to volunteer to go through the protocol. So I went through the full thing, which you're going to find out more about. I'm considered the senior detoxinician, which is of course a word that we made up because we did trademark the name detoxination, and that was somewhat to differentiate from detoxification, which has a kind of a connotation of being related to drug and alcohol rehabilitation. But this protocol absolutely will help with drug addiction because drugs will stay in the body and be re-stimulated under stress, fasting, even sleep. So that re-stimulation or the mobilization of those residuals will re-stimulate the brain. And that's where the cravings are coming from, and one of the reasons why the recidivism or relapse rate in this country is so bad. It's between 75 and 82%. And this protocol has been used successfully for many years by an organization called Narconon, and their success rate is 75%. So, and that's because of this protocol. I am the CEO of Detoxination Wellness Centers here in this very building. I was the co-host of the Get Detoxinated show, which ran on 105.5 all of last year. So that just ended recently. As you saw, I am the author of that wonderful book, which I hope everybody wants. And I am the son of Dr. David Root, which I'm very proud of. This is his Wikipedia bio, and it basically points out that he is known for human detoxification. His bio, though, is extremely fascinating because of his military career as a research physician. He was a pilot physician and did a lot of in-flight medical research. Now, my detox inspiration is my wife, Susie, because in 2012 she was diagnosed with hyperthyroidism. And back in those days we were essentially under what I call a social allopathic conditioning spell. And we just went right along with whatever treatment protocol was advised by her primary care physician. And that turned out to be radioactive iodine therapy, which wound up killing off her thyroid. So she will now never be able to get better. And so it's just the way things are with us now. We basically use this as a radioactive, or the science fair project. You can see that picture was taken by my kids when she was highly radioactive. We actually literally had to stay away from her for 3 or 4 days while that radioactivity worked off. But she didn't get better, she got far worse. So now she is a slave to the pharmaceutical industry to live and function, and she would say barely functioning. So, and it was when we did our after the fact research that we really discovered what we should have done to actually prevent that treatment plan. And we did awake from the social allopathic conditioning, as I mentioned, but what we discovered, which opened our eyes, was that poor nutrition and xenobiotics create mitochondrial dysfunction, which causes most diseases and cancers. Now, I like to say your body's like a vacuum cleaner. It sucks up dust, dirt, toxins, everything that it can, especially through the hands and feet. And the reason for that is because your hands and feet don't have the protective sebaceous glands to provide the sebum or to block things. So that sebum that's what keeps your hair oily or moist and kind of your skin moist. Your hands and feet don't have that. So if you put something like oregano or some garlic on your feet, you'll eventually taste it. Have you ever tried that? It's really fun. Yeah. Any kind of essential oil you can probably put on your feet and taste it too. So there's a difference between toxins and xenobiotics. Toxins by nature are a poison or venom of plant or animal origin, especially one produced by or derived from microorganisms and causing disease when present at low concentrations in the body. Versus a xenobiotic, which is relating to or denoting a substance, typically a synthetic chemical that is foreign to the body. Synthetic chemicals meaning man-made. And xenobiotics also include heavy metals, persistent organic pollutants, and that's your DDT, dioxins, your pesticides, herbicides, that kind of thing. So when I say toxins, please understand I am really referring mostly to xenobiotics. Now, xenobiotics, or all toxins, literally come in either a water-soluble or hydrophilic form, which is readily dealt with by your detoxification pathways and excreted through the urine and feces. That's, water-soluble is what processes very easily through the body. Now, lipophilic or fat-soluble or fat-loving toxins must be biochemically altered into water-soluble compounds before they can be excreted from the body. And so what happens here is the natural process of detoxification typically involves two phases. And one phase converts the toxins into easily excreted water-soluble waste, and the other one basically packages it, you'll see. A majority of these reactions occur in the liver, and additional detoxing organs include the GI tract, lungs, kidneys, and skin, and also your brain. So the toxins initially go in and get beaten up, broken down in the phase 1 process, which helps to break them down into more manageable pieces, if you will. And then the phase 2 packages the toxins, actually makes them less toxic. However, unfortunately, that doesn't always work, and some things become even more toxic. So, but then ideally, they're eliminated through the gallbladder, bile, and stool, or the kidneys into urine, okay? So unhandled toxins are the next phase here, which are the detoxification pathways. The natural ones can handle most natural heavy metals, okay? Synthetic chemicals or persistent organic pollutants are a recent development. Within only the last 150 to 200 years have we really been seeing this prevalence of chemicals. And so our bodies have not adapted to being able to process those very well, which I just said. And so these unaltered lipophilic toxins become sequestered in fat cells to protect the other vital organs. The problem is that your brain is 60 to 70% fat. So this is kind of the same animation now in the slide form, where we're looking at the blood vessel and the fat surrounding it. And these are the heavy metals that are coming down to play, and then the synthetic chemicals combining with that. Now they're going to start moving out of the blood vessels in the interstitial fluid, or what we call the extracellular space, and work their way into the fat, okay? And during this process, they overwhelm the fat cell, and this is where the damage occurs, and you're going to learn about that. So, over 100,000 chemicals are produced each year in this country, and roughly 4,000 new ones are being added annually. Unfortunately, less than 10% of those chemicals have been tested for human safety, and the ones that have been tested less than 1% of those have been tested in combination. So if you've seen how they work in the lab and they mix chemicals, you get reactions when chemicals come together. And unfortunately, that's going on in the body as well. Now, the Mount Sinai School of Medicine did a study of 9 volunteers in 2003, and they found that more than 700 chemicals were found in the fat of Americans in general. That 2003 study also showed that 167 toxins were found in the participants. They averaged 91 of those chemicals each. 94 of these chemicals affect the brain and nervous system. 76 are carcinogenic, and all 9 of them had those. So 79 are linked to birth defects, and no level of these toxins is acceptable. And what is the standard of care treatment out there? None. But wait, Dan, what about chelation? So what about chelation? So we remember this slide here with the metals in the blood. What happens with chelation is they inject usually a chemical into the vein, which then binds with some of the heavy metals. Not all of them, but some. So you get a little bit of a bonding going on there, but that's about all that happens. They flow through the body and go back through the liver and the kidneys through enterohepatic recirculation, and then who knows what happens to them at that point. Yes, ma'am?
Is the chelation only for heavy metals, or is it also for those chemicals?
Only for heavy metals. Okay. And only certain heavy metals.
Is chelation kind of like the liver? The liver functions when it chelates? It
Uh,
acts like it, you know what I'm talking about?
Well, chelation is, chelating is where 2 ions are binding together to get a bond, and usually that makes things more, or I should say less toxic.
If the liver's failing, then they give you a chelating calcium.
Right, and that's to bind with whatever is causing the problem. And the problem is that these chelating agents aren't as great as they are. And you're about to find that out too, right here. So they're effective against acute poisoning. And yes, I do agree with chelation when there's acute metal toxicity. So if there's been a poisoning of mercury or lead or something like that, absolutely chelation. They form that non-toxic complex, like I showed you, where they bind. Now, they remove the metal from soft tissues, but not necessarily the deep fat, all right? And I did mention that oral therapy is available, but usually it's injected, so they're putting a chemical into your bloodstream. I did say a chemical, to bind with these metals, but then they don't really give them a good exit strategy. So that is why I'm not a big fan of this. And the types of metals, types of metals are mercury, lead, iron, and arsenic that we know that they chelate well with. The drawbacks here is that the redistribution of the toxic metal is basically because there's not an exit strategy provided for these things. There's the essential metal loss of copper and calcium, so you're actually losing good metals as well as the bad metals. There's no removal of metal from the intracellular sites. That would be inside the fat cell. So really, there's nothing that's getting inside the fat that medical science has to offer. Hepatotoxicity is, and nephrotoxicity is the liver and the kidneys basically are beaten up by this whole process. And unfortunately, there's poor clinical recovery with chelation therapy. It's a pro-oxidant effect, so it's not antioxidant, which means that it's actually negatively affecting your body. It's aging you. So, and people, report headache, nausea, increased blood pressure. So, basically, what I am saying here is chelation is the only thing they can offer. But as you will see here from this study, most of the conventional chelators are compromised with many side effects and drawbacks, and there is no safe and effective treatment available for heavy metal poisoning. So what that's saying is there is nothing that the medical world can offer in the case of xenobiotic poisoning, and that can be chronic or acute. So we get popular detox methods out there to, try to take care of the problem. You've got your juices or detox diets. You've got your fasting, where you go for a while without eating. Sometimes it's just hours, sometimes it's days where you just do a water fast. There's the foot baths and hyperbaric chambers. But still, not one of these gets to the fat cells. And with the medical industry, the pharmaceutical industry, what's their primary mission? By law, they have to look out for their shareholders. So they're in the industry of creating customers, not cures. This one is becoming a huge problem. The MRI with a gadolinium-based contrasting agent, we're seeing a lot more GBCA toxicity, and the problems are huge. So, first of all, there is no GBCA or gadolinium-based contrasting agent that's safe, not one. It's a neurotoxic. And most victims are unaware of the risks because they're never given the pamphlet to read before they approve getting injected with this to make the MRI more readable. They don't even need it because it's just to help or assist the technicians read the information. So the people who are suffering with gadolinium toxicity, they have symptoms including deep bone pain. This is the top of the list. Most of them have extreme bone pain. They got swelling or tightening of the skin. It actually looks like it's wooded. It's turned into wood. Burning, itching pain at the affected site where it was injected. Muscle weakness, yellow plaques in the eyes, brain fog, foggy vision, and severe nephrogenic systemic fibrosis, which is very debilitating. So if you've ever had an MRI, check to see if they used a GBCA to have that read better, because you more than likely have gadolinium toxicity. Yes, ma'am.
You know how they say that, your kidney excrete the GBCAs? Is that a true statement or just?
It'll do some, but unfortunately, yeah, it's a huge number of the chelated gadolinium that is being released, and it's actually winding up in the bone, the brain, and tissues.
Okay, so it's not totally eliminated.
It's totally not being eliminated. It's lasting for 6 years or more. In fact, right down there, it's being retained for 6 years or more. So, and these symptoms manifest slowly, so most people have no way to connect their problem with the MRI. So they're experiencing these symptoms years after, or even months, weeks, some even hours. But the thing is they don't connect the dots. And it's often misdiagnosed, and Lyme is one of many things it's misdiagnosed as. So, and like I said, it does retain in the body for 6 years or more. So if you've ever had an MRI, get tested for gadolinium.
It's a heavy metal, right?
It is a heavy metal. As a matter of fact, Chuck Norris and his wife Gina have sued the manufacturer of one of the test pieces because she got really messed up with this.
Wow.
And I'm not sure what ever happened with this lawsuit, but there's a face that everybody knows. They have been fighting this for the longest time. Mm-hmm. So, getting back to toxins in general, or xenobiotics, they are for the most part, endocrine disruption. They are disruptors, so they do cause problems like thyroid issues. And unfortunately, pretty much everything that a mother or a pregnant woman has in her body is going to wind up in the developing fetus. So it's going to lead to immune suppression in the unborn baby. It's going to lead to birth defects, reproductive failure, and lower exposures to these chemicals, like parts per trillion, are causing problems. Sometimes they're finding that the less amount can be actually more toxic. And women, your breasts are the most toxic part of your body. The breasts will accumulate the most toxins. So, and my father was quoted as saying, toxic substances like arsenic, cadmium, lead, and aluminum are concentrated in mother's breast milk and fed to the nursing babies. I recommend anybody considering starting a family do this protocol months before they conceive. So if they're planning a family, they should plan to do this first and do it months ahead of time. The Environmental Working Group did a study in 2005 and detected 287 chemicals in the umbilical cord blood. 180 of those cause cancer in humans or animals. 217 are toxic to your brain and nervous system. 208 cause birth defects or abnormal development in animal tests. And 9 of 10 randomly selected samples of cord blood tested positive for bisphenol A. And we all know what BPA is? Comes in the plastics. Okay. So speaking of how we're getting toxins, the exposures we're getting are coming from the air, water, food, soil, and products. And here's a standard roundup of, excuse the pun there, of chemicals that most people would have in their house. Cleansers, are pretty much all chemicals. Fragrances are extremely harmful, so anything that's got a fragrance, stay away from. Pesticides and herbicides, as we pointed out, these are persistent organic pollutants, and they will not break down very easily. They're designed to not break down. We find toxins in building materials, chemicals in new carpet and furnishings. New carpet especially is filled with formaldehyde, which they use to embalm dead bodies before burial. Most everything these days has some kind of flame retardant that it's been sprayed with, another highly toxic chemical, and I did mention the formaldehyde. Ladies, on average, women put on 168 chemicals on their body every day, and I've actually seen a study that showed 515. I went conservative for this slide deck. The skin absorbs the largest amount of toxins, especially the hands and feet, like I mentioned, because there's no sebaceous glands. And I'm going to show you what those look like in just a little bit. And the skin is the largest organ of your body, about 22 square feet, about 8 pounds that you can add on your scale. So, chemicals at the workplace. It's the 8th leading cause of death, chronic exposures to chemicals in the workplace. 160 million occupational diseases are diagnosed yearly. Most of these are caused by chemical agents, and roughly 1 in 10 cancers is the result of predictable and preventable workplace exposure. And cancer is now the leading cause of death for firefighters. So there's roughly about 600 to 810,000 deaths per year, according to the International Labor Organization. So we have chemicals in the air, like industrial pollution, jet exhaust, which, by the way, the NATO organization required the change from a JP5 to a JP8 fuel back in the 90s, and it became about 10 times more toxic in everything from aluminum to all types of various, poisons coming out of the exhaust. Then there's geoengineering, which is usually for weather modification. You all heard of that? Solar radiation management to reverse the sun's damage, supposedly to prevent global warming. They're actually just poisoning us in the process. So that's typically what a contrail would look like. If I had a bigger picture there, I'd show you that it dissipates after about 30 seconds of flight. So a contrail is just a vapor trail, but you can tell a contrail. They're pretty obvious. Play. See these right here? These would be the engines. That's what a chemtrail looks like. So chemicals in the water. We have chlorine. You've all probably heard chlorine's in the water. Do you know what chloramines are? Chloramines are even more toxic. They are ammonia with the chlorine to disinfect. And we find pharmaceuticals or drugs of abuse in our water supplies. Estrogens. The estrogens are usually coming from the synthetic hormone estrogen pills women take, and their body only uses so much, and then your body will urinate out what it doesn't use, and so that goes in the water treatment plants. Heavy metals, pesticides, herbicides, And so far, that list is mostly because the water treatment plants have historically not been designed to filter out these. They've been designed to filter out biological waste. Things have improved, but not everywhere. But then they add fluoride. And fluoride is supposed to be good for your teeth. I challenge you to show me the evidence. Yes, ma'am.
Isn't fluoride a byproduct of aluminum smelting?
And
The fluoride that
phosphate
they
fertilizer industry and nuclear.
Oh, okay.
So yes, it is a waste byproduct. And actually the long story there you can find in this book here. They'll explain to you why we now have this in our water instead of being properly disposed of. In short, we have all become biofilters. So most developed countries don't even fluoridate the water, and fluoridated countries do not have less tooth decay than those countries. Swallowing fluoride provides little benefit to teeth, so if you're drinking it, you're not getting it on your teeth. It's going down into your body. It's the only drug added to the water supply without informed consent. So did you sign off anywhere that it's okay for them to put fluoride in your water? I didn't. And studies link fluoride to brain damage because it is a neurotoxin, and Hitler knew that. He kept his prisoners of the, like Auschwitz and the other prisoners docile and dumbed down so they couldn't fight back. And 40% of American teens have dental fluorosis. And what's that, you might ask? Well, that's what it looks like. So there's very mild, moderate, severe. And that's irreversible.
So is it better not to like rinse your mouth with fluoride when they do their cleaning?
Correct.
Okay.
I will not allow them to.
Okay, okay.
So we're getting chemicals in our food. This is just a short list. Antibiotics from the beef and other animal products, chicken. Mercury, mostly from the fish and seafoods. We're getting food additives and natural flavors. There's a good one. That's a great way to disguise toxins. You don't know what is that natural flavor. And I've heard some really interesting things, like beetle juice, things like that.
The best one is beaver anal gland.
Thank you. That was what I was just.
Vanilla.
Yes, beaver anal gland.
Beaver anal gland is what they use for vanilla flavoring.
Yeah, so
Vanilla extract?
No, vanilla flavoring, not vanilla extract that you
Okay.
get like in the bottle, but for actual vanilla, like you see vanilla flavor
right.
on something. It is natural.
So natural flavor is something
It
to
is
watch
a
out for.
natural flavor, so,
Yes.
yeah. Stay away from that.
Preservatives. How many of you ever heard about the McDonald's French fries that some guy bought and left on his counter for 6 years and they still looked edible? Food colors, MSG and aspartame, very bad chemicals. And of course, we mentioned the BPAs or bisphenol A, and then there's the phthalates. So BPAs make the plastic harder and phthalates make plastic softer. Just keep in mind that way, that's how I do it. So like your saran wrap or your squeezy, water bottles, they've got probably both. And of course, last but not least, we have glyphosate. And who here knows what glyphosate is? And I know you two do. Roundup, very good. So we're getting a lot of glyphosate in our food. Speaking of McDonald's. Love that cartoon. It's my water break. All right, so glyphosate and GMOs. It's been linked to autism, allergies, GI diseases, gastrointestinal, cardiovascular diseases, infertility, obesity, depression, multiple sclerosis, Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, ALS, cancer, and more. And according to Dr. Stephanie Seneff, glyphosate is possibly the most important factor in the development of multiple chronic diseases and conditions that have become prevalent in westernized societies. Here are some correlated graphs showing GMOs when they were introduced in 1996 and the spraying of the glyphosate or Roundup on these products. So these are supposedly Roundup ready, which means that they won't die when sprayed with an herbicide. So that correlation graph is pretty much the same for most diseases that we know of. Here's more.
Do they ever compare it with DDT?
Well, DDT and plastics go back further, so you do get diseases. You get diseases and stuff, but I have not seen a curve as dramatic with those. Yeah, because the plastics and DDT. I mean, plastics are about in the 60s, and then prior to that, we have the DDTs and stuff like that. But I have never seen correlation graphs that are that severe when it comes to diseases.
Tupperware, would you get rid of it?
I wouldn't cook with it. And actually, I don't even like storing food in them. So we've moved to glass for ours. But just don't even cook in the microwave with plastic at all. So,
Teflon.
or Teflon, of course. But
Should you maybe not be cooking in the microwave?
yes, sir. Thank you. I know people are tough to get rid of that microwave, but if you're going to use one, you know, it's got to be something like a porcelain or a glass. So I'm guilty of, you know, reheating
You have to
something.
take water that's in microwave and put it in the fish tank, the fish die, and put it in plants and water them, they all die.
Because all of the nutrients are killed off,
It
yeah.
blows up the cell on the inside of whatever you're doing, and when you eat it, there is not one bit of nutritional value, and it's like eating toxic waste.
Exactly.
Dead
Dead food. Yep.
Now, I think the DDT was more related to actual birth defects from women.
Oh,
Yeah, I think it was a more in
Yes.
utero
And
type
birds.
of, and birds and things like that. So I'm not really sure what the exterior
Go back.
disease component would be, like what they're showing here with autism, kidney and renal cancer, and all of that. My understanding was DDT exposure was more, like an in utero type of.
And
Yep.
the condors, the condor eggs were breaking.
Right.
The eggs couldn't hold their shape, and that's how the numbers were.
Yep.
all I
Thank you.
remember was the DDT truck, seeing those videos.
Yeah.
I mean, movies.
It settles science. Let us spray you.
The science is settled.
Yes. All right, so I want to thank Nancy Swanson for these graphs. Moving on. So, why are we getting all this damage? What's really going on? It's mitochondrial, folks. We're causing mitochondrial dysfunction with all of this xenobiotic toxicity. And as I showed in that earlier animation, as the toxins are going into the cells, it's just totally causing a dysfunction because they cannot process the proteins and things that they need. Yes, ma'am.
Do you know if there's any way to test for mitochondrial function, like on a personal level?
I actually don't know if there is a way. There probably is a secondary correlation with the test, but I don't know of a single test that'll do that. So, yeah. But we do have glyphosate testing now, so that's good. All right, so mitochondria is the target of these environmental toxins. So we have integrated metabolic models for xenobiotic-induced mitochondrial toxicity in skeletal muscle. So essentially, we're damaging our skeletal muscles. Yes.
Sorry, some of these, like the glyphosate and things, are those actually engineered to attack the mitochondria of the organism that it's
You're getting into
out of curiosity?
You're getting into a little bit deeper where Stephanie Seneff would be the best way to get your answers, the sugarmate pathway and all that. Yeah, I could go down there, but I don't have that time. So, mitochondrial dysfunction induced by xenobiotics involvement in fatty liver. That's what that's saying. And then I like this one too, not really, but mitochondria in obesity and type 2 diabetes. So they're all related. Mitochondrial disease and toxins, and this is going to lead into mitochondrial dysfunction has been identified as an important factor in many diseases and conditions beyond primary mitochondrial disease, including autism, ALS, Parkinson's, Alzheimer's, and diabetes. Exposures to toxins via medication, lifestyle, and the environment may lead to mitochondrial dysfunction, cell damage, and organ dysfunction. So this was a lecture that these folks were going to give. But they're proving the point that these xenobiotics are causing mitochondrial dysfunction, which is leading to pretty much every autoimmune, inflammatory, endocrine, and neurological disease, and most cancers. So how do you know your body's overwhelmed with toxins? This is just one sampling, okay? Blurred vision, memory loss, acid reflux and GERD, central nervous system disorders, increased risk of breast cancer, unexplained weight gain and unfortunate loss of ability to lose weight, back pain, low testosterone in men. There's a whole industry around this one, and it's really because of xenobiotics. So, irritable bowel syndrome, increased risk of colon cancer, joint inflammation and stiffness. As a matter of fact, pretty much all of your rheumatoid arthritis and other arthritic problems are also toxins in the joints. So here's signs your body's overwhelmed by toxins. This is kind of more along the lines of like chronic fatigue, sleeplessness, bloating and indigestion, headaches, blurred vision, joint pain, weight gain, fuzzy thinking and difficulty concentrating, memory loss, constipation or diarrhea, irritable bowel syndrome, excess gas and foul-smelling stool, sinus congestion, heartburn, food cravings, water retention, rashes and other skin disorders, puffy, dark circles under the eyes, and I will throw in there fibromyalgia, and probably several disorders like essential tremor. So it's amazing how the body is responding to these toxins. So wouldn't you just like to feel better? Well, detoxination is the answer, and Peter just gave us the perfect time. This is the right slide to stop and take a break. If anybody would like to use the restroom, grab some water or some food before we continue. We'll take about a 5-minute break. Okay, righty. So we're going to get you better. So that went a little bit faster, I think, than I was supposed to. Detoxification is a protocol that uses niacin, exercise, and sauna therapy to do the job, which you're going to learn about. Detoxination also involves better lifestyle options or choices. Proper mindset is a big one. You have to really be consciously making decisions that are for the betterment of your health and your well-being. That includes healthier food choices, non-toxic products, and recommendations for sustainable health. And so when I talk detoxination, it's not just this sauna therapy that you've heard about. So it's really the whole thing, and it's all in my book. So if you recall, we were looking at fat cells in illustrations in the past. Let me show you a little bit of a zoomed in blow-up version of it. So you have the cell membrane, which is exaggerated for this purpose, and it shows that there are these little protein channels which allow, because this is all oil-based, it's all fat oil. So in order for water-soluble vitamins or minerals to get in to help everything work, they use these protein channels. Anything that's like a xenobiotic that is lipophilic or fat-loving will go right through the membrane. So these toxins are inside this fat reservoir. So this is built up of triglycerides. And then we have our mitochondria and the nucleus. So I consider this to be the engine and the brain. So as the niacin is used, which has to be immediate release on this protocol, and it's pure nicotinic acid, okay? What it does is it stimulates lipid mobilization by triggering the release of free fatty acids into the bloodstream. It's basically the breakdown of the triglycerides into its two main components, free fatty acids and glycerol. And it's important to know that because I'm about to show you a graph that measures the free fatty acids. But everybody's probably seen something to do with the niacin flush, okay? And what it's doing is it's dilating the capillaries, and that's allowing more blood to flow through those little capillaries, and that actually is also pushing some of the toxins through. It causes a redness in the face, arms, and chest. How many of you experienced the niacin flush? Pretty much everybody in the room? Not you yet, huh, Bill? Or you, Howard? You have.
No, I haven't, not yet.
Because you felt like you overdosed on it?
Yeah, yeah, it was hot.
Yeah.
It
Well,
went from your toes to your head.
just know that some people actually crave that. They take niacin just for that.
No way.
Yes, I'm an admin on a Facebook group that they're always striving to get to that flush. So here's a simple time lapse of me ingesting niacin. So you'll see here that
Wow.
I start to turn red.
Wow.
It's so serious. How long?
I sat there for about 15 minutes. So run it through about 4 times here because you really can see the niacin flush there. It causes an itching and tingling of skin too. Did you feel that when you were on the niacin?
Yeah, and you want to feel cold, so you go down on the floor to get cold on a tile,
Or were you cramping too? You may have been cramping.
maybe.
Yeah.
I think I overdid it. I took too much at one time.
Yeah, if it's the first time, yeah, you don't want to just start like at a 500 milligram or more. You really want to start by about 25 to 50 milligrams. So, and it does last about 45 minutes. Is that how long you experienced it?
Yeah, about over 45 minutes.
Okay.
I took it I thought it was going to help lower your blood pressure, and I took too much. I didn't know.
Yeah, it definitely lowers your blood pressure because it opens up all those capillaries. It's normal. It's not harmful. As a matter of fact, I've heard of somebody trying to overdose on niacin, and they swallowed a whole bottle. And the calculated amount that person ingested was 200,000 milligrams.
But they're still alive.
And they're still alive. They probably hated life during that moment. But Dr. Abram Hoffer also uses niacin, or used when he was alive, to treat everything from mental disorders like schizophrenia, on down. So and he would prescribe between 30 and 60,000.
Your body temperature doesn't go past 104 or whatever, 105 or 6, right? When you're on the overdose.
No, it shouldn't even raise at all like that. No.
Really?
So yeah, it shouldn't do anything. So.
Psst, hey Dan,
What?
can I be done now?
Yes. Sorry.
Oh my
Thank you.
God.
Oh, and did you know you spelled niacin wrong? I'll take care of that.
Thank you.
Very cool.
All right. So now we're going to talk about lipolysis.
Like that.
Lipolysis. This is a normal function in the body where your body's using that fat to create energy. All right, that's to create ATP. So it's used to release the stored energy in your fat cell, which is what a fat cell is. So you get that stored energy during fasting or exercise, stress, even at night when you're asleep because your body is repairing itself. It is the breakdown of those triglycerides for ATP, which I mentioned before, is where it's releasing the free fatty acids, the glycerol, and it's also releasing fat-soluble vitamins, oils, and lipids, and some toxins, which is important to know. So during this process where your body's creating energy by burning the fat cell, you are releasing some of the toxins that are in that fat. And in fact, when you've exercised really heavily and you might feel nauseous or headachy, that tends to be because of 2 things: a high volume of lactic acid and mobilized toxins in your blood. So, and those are hitting the brain and other organs and really causing you to feel blasé.
That'd be the basis of the fasting detox?
Yes.
You're talking about fasting?
Yes.
Detox?
The reason I'm not a big fan of that, though, is because they don't give them a good exit strategy, just like chelation doesn't give a good exit strategy. So, and it tends to overstimulate or overwhelm your natural detoxification pathways. So the liver and kidneys are having to basically battle those same toxins that it couldn't win before. So, they got stored in fat because the liver and kidneys couldn't process those into water soluble. So this is the graphic I was telling you about, that we're going to show you that we're measuring the free fatty acids over time. Okay, so what this graph is showing in a normal person or a normal control group, the lipolysis looks like this line here over 6 hours. Okay, but when I give you niacin, if I give you niacin here, it actually shuts off lipolysis. But Dan, that's counterintuitive, isn't it? Because we want these toxins out of the fat, right? But what you see here is that when niacin wears off in 2.5 hours, the body's able to restart lipolysis. And what happens here is that the body, because it's been shut off for 2.5 hours, when it starts back up, it overreacts. And it's called rebound lipolysis. I usually have a dangling rubber band to use as an example where I have this rubber band is normal lipolysis, this is U on niacin, and then when it wears off, bing, shoots up in the air and rebounds. So this is your rebound lipolysis, and it lasts, or it's about a 4 times greater amount of free fatty acids, and it lasts for about 4 hours. So during that time, this is where we get you into the protocol. So what that means is that starting at this point here, we get you exercising and in the sauna, which we're going to talk about next. So that's the window of opportunity. That's the important piece here. So as I showed you there, that's where it shuts off. It rebounds 4 times normal levels. And at this point, we're looking at 200% more of the toxins are being released from the fat cells in your body during this state. This is why the protocol works. This is how we've been able to take it from a 4-hour, 30-day protocol to a 2-hour and 2 weeks. It's because we no longer just give you the niacin and start you on the protocol. We give you the niacin to take home, and then you take that niacin 2 hours before you come to the center, or if you wish, you can do this protocol at home. So you just take the niacin 2 hours before you start. So we got this 200% greater toxin release, and that's going into the interstitial space, and it's working its way back to the blood, because now we want to get you exercising. It's a low impact exercise. It's not about beating you up to make you a stronger person. It's all about getting that blood to flow out to the dermis layers of your skin, and that's pushing those toxins out to where we can now start working with them in the sauna. Now, if you cannot tolerate the exercise, we now have a solution for you as well. We have the Chi machine, so and we can talk more about that.
That's with niacin too?
Yep.
Okay.
So, when you're in the sauna, it's the primary elimination route for a lot of toxins. There's a lot of heavy metals, PCBs, and things like that that won't even show up in blood or urine tests, but they will show up in sweat. So sweat is actually the primary route of elimination for a lot of these toxins. We use well-ventilated or low-heat saunas. In fact, we now pretty much stick with far infrared saunas. The dry or convection saunas are absolutely usable, but they take longer to get to the types of results that we are achieving. So like I said, we only use far infrared now. And also, studies have now shown that 4.3 times more toxins are eliminated in these far infrared saunas because of sebaceous sweat. So sebaceous sweat, what is that? Well, we have both eccrine watery sweat glands in our skin. We also have about 90 of these sebaceous glands per square inch of our fat, or of our skin, I mean. So it's the gland here that is lubricating the hair follicle and making your skin moist. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to get the toxins out of the fat and up in this area so that they can be excreted in your sweat. So your watery eccrine sweat is not releasing very many toxins. It's probably just the toxins that have been sucked in through those pores from the air.
So can you only achieve that sebaceous sweat in the far infrared sauna?
No, what I was saying is the dry convection saunas, it takes longer to achieve that.
I see.
What it is that a dry convection sauna typically runs about 100 180 degrees to 200 degrees Fahrenheit, and it tends to be oppressively hot because the moist air around you, especially when somebody throws the water over the rocks, it gets really steamy in there. That oppressive heat can only be tolerated for 15, 20 minutes tops maybe, and then you have to take a cool off period. So you're in and out of the sauna and basically restarting this whole process of heating the body. Whereas with a far infrared sauna, you're being cooked from the inside out, if you will. The light waves are penetrating about 1.5 inches deep, and they're getting the water molecules vibrating and creating heat, and it gets to the sebaceous sweat much, much faster, because you can actually tolerate like 45 minutes in these saunas. Now, if you don't think you can, I don't make you do 45 minutes the first time around, but you'll work up to it. But the cycles typically are 45 minutes the first time, then we'll do about 10 to 15 minutes cool off, and then you'll do another 30 minutes of infrared sauna. So otherwise, you're just going to keep doing these cycles in a dry convection sauna, which, by the way, in the book, I do have both protocols spelled out. So if you have a dry convection sauna, I have a protocol for that, and if you have an infrared sauna, I have a protocol for that. Thank you for the question. So that is the gland. And basically, Dr. Dietrich Klinghardt, who is one of the leading scientists in the field of this research, has some lab results that showed that the sweat of people using a conventional sauna was 95 to 97% water, while the sweat of those using an infrared sauna was 80 to 85% water. And that non-water portion, which we call sebaceous sweat, contained cholesterol, fat-soluble toxins, toxic heavy metals, sulfuric acid, sodium, ammonia, and uric acid. So this is why the protocol is so successful now, because of the far infrared saunas. Understanding the niacin and understanding how the sauna makes a difference has improved our efficacy of this protocol and time commitment. We also have to replenish the water-soluble vitamins and minerals, because you will lose those to sweat, so you're losing the good with the bad. So we replenish your vitamins and minerals based on your niacin dose. So it balances that niacin intake, because you don't want to overdo one vitamin without balancing the rest of them. And it is proportional with the niacin, like I mentioned. We also give you oils, including lecithin, a blend of flaxseed, hemp, sunflower. There's several of these polyunsaturated, cold-pressed oils that we use. That happens to be some of my top favorites. Ideally, it's coating the GI tract lining and reducing enterohepatic recirculation. Some people say that the oils are also binding somewhat with some of the toxins in the GI tract. However, I prefer to use regular binders for that purpose, which you'll see here in a minute. So in the gut, we're taking care of whatever permeates through the GI tract lining. We're using things like activated charcoal, bentonite clay, and micronized zeolite. I prefer the two on the outer ends there, the activated charcoal and the zeolite. I do use bentonite sometimes, but we found that the other two actually are more encompassing, so they do a better job. And we time everything with the protocol so that you're capturing what's not being sweated out while you're in the protocol, as well as at night when you go to bed. So we also are recording or measuring your blood pressure, your core temperature, your BMI and fat percent. We monitor your weight to make sure that, and this is not about weight loss here at this point, it's about, did you hydrate enough? Did you drink enough fluids while you were in the sauna? Because we want to make sure that you're not going to have any issues once you leave the center. So you're weighing in and weighing out, and those two numbers should be pretty close to one another. We also have blood chemistry panels and xenobiotic testing as needed, thanks to Great Plains Lab or doctor's data. Now, can toxins really be eliminated in sweat? I have seen people challenging this concept, and unfortunately they're not very well versed on the niacin protocol that has the science backing it. What they're looking at are these 1-hour sauna spa places that, you know, use the word detox in their marketing. Yeah, your body's going to lose a little bit of toxins, but not like what we do here. And so the other thing too is they're not familiar with the sebaceous sweat. They're only measuring the sweat that's coming out of the eccrine pores. So anyway, arsenic, cadmium, lead, and mercury have been shown in studies to be excreted through the skin as well as or better than in urine. Another study found that BPA in 80% of the subjects sweat while finding no detectable levels in their blood or urine. Sweat is the ideal way to remove certain carcinogenic PBDEs found in flame retardants, phthalates, and volatile organic hydrocarbons. So sweat literally is the preferred way for a lot of these to come out of the body. And again, most people don't really understand that because they don't have a big knowledge on the different problems of the xenobiotics out there and the fact that medical science has no real solution for them. So preclusions and contraindications would include everything from pregnancy, because we don't want you to be passing on the toxins from your body to your developing fetus. So absolutely not being done while pregnant, not being done while breastfeeding or lactating as well, because like I mentioned, your breasts are far more toxic than the rest of your body. If you have psychosis, especially uncontrolled, that means that you're taking some kind of medication. It must be stopped before you do this protocol. Right now, we're not able to work with wheelchair-bound patients, but there is a sauna that we hopefully will acquire here shortly that has a wheelchair ramp and accommodates a wheelchair. And the beauty is that with far infrared, the waves bounce off of the metal, whereas with a dry convection sauna, the metal will heat up and it'll become very intolerable. So we will be getting an ADA compliant sauna here very shortly. This protocol has been used, and whenever I think of wheelchair bound, the first thing that comes to my mind are Vietnam vets or veterans who have been disabled because of various forms of poisons that they were exposed to, including all of the vaccinations and drugs they were given before they deployed, and the DEET that they were sprayed on their uniforms and things like that. So a lot of disabled veterans are very targeted with this protocol. In fact, my father has the most experience with treating Agent Orange, and now we have the Gulf War syndrome study under our belt. So these are all things that veterans need to be aware of, that this protocol can help them to get that garbage out of their bodies. So we have a lower age limit, but not an upper age limit. It just depends on the person's ability to tolerate. If you're in the 90s, I don't know if you would tolerate the heat much, but maybe you would enjoy it. But the 4-year-old or younger, their bodies actually aren't even capable of sweating like ours. So first of all, 4-year-olds also have to be able to, follow instruction well. So we really don't like anybody younger than 4 on this protocol, but if they can follow instruction and they do have a normal sweat ability, then they can do the protocol. Other medical conditions may require special handling, and we do have a really complete list in the book of contraindications and preclusions. Any questions on this so far? Okay. So here's one of my testimonials here. I am calm, clear, focused. I fall asleep quickly and wake up early. As an athlete, I'm much more focused and light. My reflexes are improved, as well as the ability to trust my body's trained instinctive responses. There seems to be more time within each moment, an easy anticipation that seems almost precognitive. I feel much more centered in life. I feel a much stronger sense of self, which I'm confident will enhance my artistic and professional life. Before the program, I was losing interest in everything. Now the artist has returned from exile. Thanks, Rebecca S. All right, who and why do we want to get detoxinated? Well, wellness-minded individuals are going to want to keep from getting sick. So they're going to want to do this protocol. I believe it's a foundation for any wellness program. Workers injured by workplace chemical exposures, as we mentioned, is the 8th leading cause of death. Couples before starting a family, we just did that, peace of mind. Career advancement, cognitive improvement. I can tell you firsthand that this protocol really does help with your cognitive function and IQ. Because when I did this protocol in 1986, they did pre and post IQ tests, and I reclaimed 10 points. So I call it reclaiming because you just had them blocked. So anybody who needs to pass a drug test, this is something that we've demonstrated that the protocol, especially with a chronic pot smoker, can, a chronic pot smoker is going to take probably 60 to 75 days to be able to pass a drug screen. We can get them cleared in about 10 days. So, lifestyle changes. Did I lose my microphone? I did, but you're going to hear me without it, right? So, lifestyle change, reversing aging effects of toxins. Aging is a big one because the body is literally, dying because of oxidation and things that's being caused by xenobiotics. And I can tell you, I've done this protocol many times, and I'm now 56, and I feel 30. So, I can tell you this is an anti-aging type of protocol. If you need to get off the drugs of abuse, I did mention earlier that the residual drugs are in the body's fat and being released and re-stimulating the brain. So we have a very high rate of success with people that have been, unable to give up drugs, being able to do it now. We can help you end chronic pain, fatigue, fibromyalgia, insomnia, as well as obesity. We can prevent Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, and ALS dementia. If you get these toxins out of the body, your body will not have as much of a chance to be afflicted with these diseases. We can prevent obesity, diabetes, cancer, and early death. So these are things that the protocol, we've actually had people that are type 2 diabetics come off of their insulin because of these types of protocols. It's both getting the toxins out and improving the nutritional intake. So it's not just about getting toxins out. Detoxination is all about the proper choices with your food too. So, all right, I feel alive again, healthy. Life is amazing. I am ready to take on the world. Nothing is going to get in my way, and if it does, I will be able to deal with it. I feel superhuman, light on my feet. I feel like a rocket ready to go to the moon and back. I am so happy. This was the best decision I ever made. Reen D. So these are reported benefits of detoxination. You will feel better and renewed. It will improve your overall health, greater energy, raised cognition, like I mentioned. Yeah, on average, we do see, actually it should say 7 to 14, but 10 is the average. You get more restful sleep, increased weight loss, and that is a function of getting the toxins out of the fat cells because that stubborn weight won't come off if it's toxic. It reduces aches and pains, of course, pre-pregnancy or conception peace of mind, better skin and body scent, heightened senses. This is one that we see a lot of reports on where your tastes, your vision, your hearing become more vivid, so do your dreams. You sleep better and actually remember your dreams better. You have a happier attitude and enhanced physique and stamina. All right, I noticed an increase in many of my perceptions. For example, my eyesight and my hearing, my sense of smell, as well as my sense of taste have all been heightened. I feel cleaner and have more energy. Running was a sport I always avoided, but now I enjoy it and it's easy. I know now that my energy production is not at all reliant upon any form of stimulants like coffee and tea or even quick fix natural energy bars. I no longer need coffee. I have also eliminated sugar from my daily food regimen, and the sugar from fruit can give me the energy and alertness I want. This program has given me so many gains. Lisa B. This is Brittany K's story. Brittany was basically, or at the time, a 25-year-old Canadian gal that was a meth addict. She was supposedly off the meth for 2 months before she was coming for her detox. And unfortunately, we found out the day before they were to arrive that she was still using. And I try to stop them because we're not a rehab. You know, do the 12-step before you do this. That's what I tell people. So mother begged me to treat her daughter because I was the last resort, she said. And I was getting on day 29, shaking my head, going, this is not working. But pretty quickly after that, we started seeing one of the two cravings go away. She had a sugar and a meth craving, and the sugar craving started to go away, and there was a sign of hope. And sure enough, within a couple of days, her meth craving was gone. And I wish I had more time to keep her on the program, but unfortunately, her sister was having a dance recital, and they had to get back to Canada for that. So, but anyway, I got a great response from the mother. But before I show you that, here's Brittany's stained pads. This is a common feature we see as a manifestation, is stains on the pads that we use to protect both the wood of the sauna as well as the next person who's going to be in that sauna. So this is actually from her sports bra. She had a black and pink Nike sports bra. It had a pink stripe in the back. And what we found was that a solvent called toluene was leaching this dye from a very well-worn and washed sports bra. It was not a new top, so she was leaching this dye out because the solvents from the meth, which is actually an impurity in the process of making meth, because they use like 8 to 12 solvents in the process. So anyway, toluene was determined to be the factor that was causing her to leach onto the pads. And we see all kinds of stains, by the way. All right, so mom's testimonials. She no longer feels nauseated and sick. Her moods are consistently normal. She is generally happy. She has a more positive outlook on life, making plans for her future. And I should have told you guys in the beginning of this that she was a aspiring kickboxing champion. So she was trying to compete, and she injured her back and got depressed and started using drugs. So her attitude is so much better here. She handles stressful situations better. She can't wait to start back at work, talking about saving to buy a house. I think we can officially say that she has no more depression. I could cry because it has been such a long battle. I know the niacin sauna detox program was a total game changer for her. All right, I'm going to briefly go through this because I don't want to keep you too long, but my father was a research physician and clinician, so he was involved with several projects around the world. And the big one was the 1987 Summit, Slovenia, where they were treating capacitor workers who were handling capacitors that were made with PCBs. And the main case is a woman that was the reason that they got called out there was she was basically sleeping 20 hours a day, and the remaining 4 hours of the day was completely useless. So she was also oozing 50 cc's of blue-green material from her breasts. And they wanted my father and the team to come out to set up a detox center. But what they discovered actually was news to the medical world. They used a 6-inch needle on about 14 or 15 of these workers and took samples from the rump and tested those. And they did before and after. And what they discovered was that the fat was 200 times more toxic than the blood serum tests revealed. And that became one of 2 papers that were published on this subject. And one of those papers was cited over 25 times in other research papers and is also cited in a medical textbook. So it was news to the medical world that the fat was that toxic. Dr. George Yu went on to actually pursue the research and discovered that certain things like DDE, which is a metabolite of DDT, and PCBs can be 1,000 times greater in the fat than the blood serum tests reveal.
When did the procedure come on board? I mean, what year? When did you guys start doing the procedure?
1982 is when we got involved.
1982.
Yeah, I did the protocol in 1986.
Okay.
So
the people in Slovenia had the procedure done?
yes.
Oh, wow.
Yes, they called out my father's team to set up that field study. They didn't expect it would be a field study, but that's what they turned it into because they discovered the fact that the fat was 200 times greater than the blood serum tests. So, and it was also able to show that the protocol was effective.
Oh, wow.
So, He also gave a presentation in front of the Presidential Oversight Board of Gulf War incidents and the CDC, which led to the Gulf War Syndrome study, which is also another study that there's published, peer-reviewed papers on. There's going to be more coming because the results are just being released. The big project was the 2002 New York Rescue Workers Detoxification Project, which they started the process then, and it ran from 2003 to 2007. They treated over 1,000 first responders, and the results of that are another published paper at nih.gov, PubMed. So pretty much these are all things you can find at PubMed.
The 9/11 responders.
The first responders, as well as volunteers and some of the residents that were able to go through, and they were all treated for free. So it was all by donation. Because of the results of the New York Rescue Workers Detoxification Project, the Attorney General for Utah, Mark Shurtleff, funded a study and treatment program for the cops that were involved with meth lab raids. These guys are getting extremely contaminated with the solvents that were being used to manufacture meth. Like I said, there's about 8 to 12 different solvents that are used. So the Utah Meth Cops Project is another research paper at PubMed. So this is going to get a little bit deeper into that capacitor worker. So she was sleeping 20 hours a day and the greenish material oozing from her breasts. What this is showing here is that the concentrations were pretty high, but the subcutaneous fat was reduced by 60% at the end of her protocol, and the serum PCB measurements were 34% less. So, and the discharge stopped 5 days after the protocol, so they got all that stuff out of her in 5 days, at least all the stuff that was causing the oozing. So it was a great study. I mentioned this. This was the Gulf War Syndrome study. It was a government grant. This is the New York Rescue Workers Detoxification Project. Basically, what we're showing here is the fact that all that dust and debris was blowing through the streets and everything, and most of the rescue workers weren't prepared with the right personal protective equipment. They didn't have the right filters. And so they were breathing in a lot of this stuff, and I've seen videos of them out there working without any masks on. So we had this kind of counts of people that were exposed, and the care that they received involved inhalers, steroids, acid reflux medications, antidepressants, and it was like the goal was just to suppress the symptoms because they believed that time would heal, and it wasn't healing. It hasn't. So they wanted to try to get the workers returned to their pre-9/11 quality of life, get them, back in the workforce and not having to face early retirement, and prevent any of the long-term effects from all that body burden of toxins. That was the goal. So over 1,000 first responders were treated through this. Okay. This is an example of some of the towels that we were seeing from these firefighters. That bluish pink or purple material there, you can see the swatches cut out here and here. Those swatches were sent into the lab and tested. They came back morbidly high in manganese. So these guys were inhaling or absorbing into their bodies high quantities of manganese, which manganese is good for the body, but not in this type of concentrations. So, and there's a whole bunch of testimonials, basically case study testimonials that I have on the back wall of the center. We're not going to read through all of these, but you can see that these guys were essentially turned around completely for the better. So we had 484 actually participate in the survey, and 273 were firefighters, 52 were sanitation workers, 19 paramedics. You get the gist of it there. But this was what the subjective results looked like. Now there were objective results that were published in this study, but you can see that these high values, they were off the charts kind of. But when they retested, they were claiming that their severity was lessened by the blue values, so of all these different areas. 30% of all patients have abnormal levels of thyroid-related hormones at the beginning of treatment. So following treatment, 66 of those patients have normal thyroid function again. So that's alluding to the endocrine disrupting nature of the xenobiotics. Like fluoride is definitely, something that's going to affect the thyroid. It's going to get to the thyroid before iodine has a chance, for example. Before treatment, 50% of the patients had high total cholesterol. Following treatment, over 70% had normal cholesterol levels. That is a function of niacin. So if you've ever heard niacin is used to treat cholesterol, this is what this is showing. So 42% of all the patients require medications at the beginning of the program. 87% of them no longer needed their medications. So. And again, red bad, blue good. So this is showing like average number of days that they had for each of these: poor health, average number of days for poor mental health, whatever, limited activity, missed work. So in summary of the sauna detoxification program, it's natural and non-invasive. Safety has been established for more than 3 decades. Thousands of occupational and environmental exposure cases treated successfully. It addresses the toxic effects of illicit and prescription drugs and improves the recovery and rehabilitation. It's got a 30-year history of research and evaluation that continues to this day, and it's the only treatment of this kind in broad use. And we are not the only ones doing this. We just perfected it. And that's because we understand the science, and most of the folks that are using this protocol are not going to deviate from how it was originally written. So we chose to look at today's technology and the research, and we're getting better results in less time. So it's very exciting. We use far infrared saunas, and we exploit the rebound lipolysis timing, which has shortened the time from 30 days, 4 to 5 hours a day, to 14 days at 2 to 3 hours a day. And it is used for prevention of disease and reversing the aging effects of toxins. And so not only do we have it as a medically supervised program, we do it as a wellness version. And guess what? We have the star testimonial in the room.
I really enjoyed my time at the Detoxination Center. I went through actually a 2.5-week program. I didn't feel at the end of the 2 weeks that I was done. I can't explain to you exactly how I felt I was or wasn't done. It was just something that my body was telling me that I chose to listen to. So I ended up going through the program for an additional 4 days. I found that I had clearer mind. I was experiencing a lot of brain fog before my detoxination, and about a week in was when I started experiencing the clearer mind. I started having more vivid and better dreams and better sleep. And I also noticed that the rosacea that I was experiencing had started to clear up. So my skin started to look so much better. The other benefits that I ended up having were, I think the inflammation levels in my body came down significantly because all of my joint pain has gone away, and my sugar and my salt cravings have gone away as well.
And Lisa gave me a 3-minute testimonial. That was just 1 minute of it. So, yay. And this is endorsed by people like Dr. Joseph Mercola. Everybody know Mercola.com? He's well respected. He's like Dr. Oz to the internet. So Dr. Oz's TV, Mercola is on the internet. Dr. Eric Berg, he's been through the protocol 3 times that I know of. And Ben Greenfield says the protocol is the most effective detoxification protocol there is, period. So, yep, reverse the aging effects. And do you suffer any of these? Chronic pain, fatigue, sleeplessness, or overweight? Get detoxinated. Our mission is we're dedicated to improving your quality of life and health by removing illness-causing fat, stored toxins, and promoting non-toxic and organic lifestyle choices. So I've got top 10 game changers, guys. You're going to have a little bit of a idea of the types of things that you can do to improve yourself, especially before you do this protocol. So real quickly, I like to use a salt stick, salt crystal, something like this tie because it has no aluminum in it. So this is great for a deodorant.
Where do you get that?
I get mine on Amazon. Chemical-free cosmetics and lotions, so be wary about the things you're putting onto your body as well as into. But when I said 168 to 515 chemicals are put on the body every day, usually by women, it's no joke. These chemicals are prevalent, and they're not tested. Use only natural household and laundry cleaners. Let's see, did I bring one of those? Laundry. So we use laundry balls and dryer balls, wool balls, when we do our laundry. So have you ever seen these before? I know you guys have. Have you ever seen anything like these? Yeah. This is what we use to do our laundry. Non-stick cookware. If it's non-stick, it's probably bad for you. Stainless steel, glass, cast iron, although some people don't like cast iron. I do because we go camping. But there are better choices. Stainless steel tends to be the one that I think is most popular for that. Drink only filtered water, and I'm a big proponent of the Berkey filtration systems. In fact, this water bottle I'm drinking out of has a Berkey filter in it. So I can go to the tap, fill up, and have a nice shot of water and not be toxic.
Does that fluorine put in it too?
The first 150 gallons of these do, but then they start to wane off. But the replacement filters are not a problem to acquire. So, but with the bigger Berkeys, we can put a fluoride filter on that does a lot more gallons. So 3,000 to 6,000, I believe, depending on how many filters. All right, avoid plastic water bottles. Now that's actually silicon-based and non-BPA. The straw is silicon. But plastic water bottles, you think, well, I'm not heating them up, but you don't know what the history was of that bottle getting to the store. It was probably in a heated or a very hot trailer, So no fast food, prepackaged or processed convenience foods. We've got to start eating more whole food and not overcooking them, and don't use a microwave, but lightly steam your vegetables, for example. But any of these prepackaged or processed convenience foods are highly toxic. So no GMOs, genetically modified organisms. You all are familiar with those, I'm sure, by now, especially since they spray them with lots of herbicides and pesticides. No fluoride at the dentist in your toothpaste or drinking water. So you want to filter out as much of that fluoride as possible. And number one on my hit list is find a biological dentist and get those amalgam fillings or the silver mercury fillings out of your mouth. Those things are toxic. And by the way, root canals, reconsider those. If you've ever had one, you might want that dead tissue pulled from your mouth because a lot of diseases and problems come from the mouth. So your mouth, your teeth is actually, there's connections to different parts of your body. So I say get the amalgam out because of the mercury, but there's a lot of other reasons to consider how you get your teeth done. So recap, xenobiotics and poor nutrition equals disease. Conventional medicine has no help. Changing your choices equals less exposures. Safely removing xenobiotics is what detoxination is all about, and we've already gone through these benefits. I'm not going to reread all of those. So, choice is yours. I'm sure you've all seen this on Facebook, but anyway. Hey there, I'm Daniel Root, and this is my book, Sauna Detoxification Using Niacin, following the recommended protocol of Dr. David E. Root. This is our step-by-step tutorial on our detoxination protocol, and you can read all about how we use this protocol to save literally hundreds of thousands of lives from the toxin exposures that we're all experiencing in everyday living. Now, this book has just been released at teachable.com as a video tutorial course. That's getdetoxinated.teachable.com in order to get to the visual version of this book. Now, if you use Detox50 as your promo code, you'll save $50 off the regular price. So remember, this book is going to give you case studies, the research, and sample scenarios on how to use a sauna-equipped gym or even a 1-hour day spa that has a sauna. And if you don't have a sauna, I can even help you with that. So remember, this book is going to give you the in-depth, step-by-step how to do the protocol, but getdetoxinated.teachable.com is where you're going to find a visual on how to do our protocol. Remember to use Detox50 as your promo code. Also remember, health brings good things to life.